And it is the Saturday Coffee Klatch with Heather Lofthouse and yours truly, Robert Reich. And Heather, another week. This is the fourth week of the Trump-Musk-Vance regime, or should we call it the Trump-Vance-Musk regime? Week number 4.
Does Vance deserve? I mean, he's been doing some stuff, but he's made his name, I guess. Let's cover the following. Musk, prices, the unfolding coup, and how about the crooks of the week starring Mayor Eric Adams?
I mean, we have. You know what? I would like to make this a little bit of an uplifting. I know it's going to be very hard, but I was going to try to.
Let's do it.
I'm going to try to aim, because this is just the headlines every day. The news is just so disgusting and so awful. And you want to start with Musk? That's fine. My image of the week is Musk in the Oval Office with his son, named X. Who names their son X? With his son X, right next to Trump, and sitting there who's sitting there behind the desk, and Musk is going off and on about federal workers and how fraudulent and how irresponsible they are, and with no evidence at all. I mean, Heather, I know these federal workers. I know many of them. I was Secretary of Labor. I worked in the government for years. I mean, most federal workers, the vast majority, really are trying to do their jobs. And Musk has no authority. How can he say this?
I know. And now he's doing this dadfluencer thing where he's coming with his kid, which I find very purposeful, let's be clear, and signaling to a lot of people that he's so amazing and he's so loving and he's so pro-family. I mean, it's not good. I don't like that part of it either.
But it's also the conflicts of interest are extraordinary here. I mean, remember, Musk has not been authorized. He hasn't been confirmed. He has been unelected. Nobody has given him permission. And these people he's working with, that he's brought in the government, nobody even knows their names. Nobody knows their backgrounds. They have not been vetted, and they are worming. They continue to worm themselves into all these data sets, all of the information pools in the government. And Musk himself has so many conflicts of interest.
So keep in mind, when Trump was elected, Musk, who has 6 corporations, they were under continuing investigations. There were 34 investigations that were going on across 11 federal agencies. I mean, that was when he was elected. Talk about conflicts. That's where we're starting from. And then he's gotten so much richer since then. Think about this. I like to think about it this way, too. So Musk's net worth is currently around $391 billion. The total salaries of civilian workers total is $271 billion. I mean, the amount of money that individual person has and represents and has his tentacles moving throughout is astonishing.
But it's the connection, as we've talked about before, of money and power, and he represents that, and he's doing it. I mean, the conflicts of interest. First of all, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that he is essentially closing down had a number of investigations going of Musk and his financial deals. I mean, one of the things Musk wants to do, he's made it very public, he wants to turn X into a consumer payments kind of app. I mean, a kind of super app. And what is he doing? Well, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau had already a number of investigations of Musk because of problems with financing, with Tesla. People who had taken out loans to finance their purchases of Tesla got into trouble, and Musk and Tesla were not doing anything about it. And then this week, in fact, on Friday, he starts going after the education department. I mean, the education department, Heather, is basically a student loan program. I mean, it's one of the smallest departments in the federal government, except it has a huge financial impact. And can you imagine the conflicts of interest there in terms of Musk wanting to get the data and also have some influence and start his own app with regard to consumer finance?
I know, but it's more than that. It's an assault. But it's an assault. I mean, yes, all of that, obviously, the financial side of it matters, but it is an assault on education, pure and simple. I mean, and we've talked about this. You've talked about it. The authoritarians don't like having less information amongst people is beneficial for them trying to confuse and manipulate. We know this. I mean, the Department of Education stuff is horrific, and it's going to get worse. And the CFPB was one of the few ways consumers had to exert leverage, right? To say, I can't, all these overdraft fees are too much. There's systemic racism throughout the financial system that we need to fight. Junk fees shouldn't be there. These are hidden or, things you can't see, unknown to you, I would say. Fees and all of these things, they got consumers like you and me, 190 million consumers or whatever it was, more than that, I think, almost $20 billion.
It got back for consumers over $20 billion.
Yeah.
And we haven't even mentioned the National Labor Relations Board, which had 22 separate investigations going against Musk. And the board has basically been shut down because the chair was fired by Trump. I mean, again, and what has happened? Trump does, Musk's bidding, and Musk does Trump's bidding, and both of them get richer. Musk's income, his wealth continues to increase because he is the major shareholder in all of these 6 companies that are doing better and better because the other shareholders assume that there's going to be no constraint on them because all of these regulatory bodies are basically being shut down. This is, I don't even know. I'm running out of words to describe the outrage. And I started this, this Coffee Klatch wanting to be upbeat, Heather, and I'm getting more and more furious as we're going on about.
I think this is our new normal, just you and me shouting statistics at each other out of overwhelm.
But it's not. But here's the thing: it is statistics, and people need to know the statistics. But also, how much law is being violated? How many norms are being violated? I hope we come back to this because our entire democracy is really at stake right now.
Yes.
And this is a. Yeah.
And you had a great Substack this week saying, why aren't we calling it a coup? So I do want to talk about that. But can we talk also about inflation and prices? So we saw inflation rose 3% according to some indices, 4% according to some others. What does this mean for everyone?
Well, again,
and do you think Trump was surprised?
Putting in context, Trump was elected largely because of the economy, because people felt prices were too high, grocery prices were too high, energy prices were too high. He said, I'm going to get prices down, and yet price inflation is actually now heading back up. It was down to close to 2%, which was the Fed's target rate, the Federal Reserve's target rate, and now it's moving back up again. And what kind of responses what's Trump talking about in terms of doing anything about inflation? Well, basically nothing. He's saying, well, it may take some more time to control inflation. Meanwhile, he's talking about more tariffs on more nations around the world, reciprocal tariffs, and those tariffs mean a tax on Americans. It means that prices are going to go even higher. And the Federal Trade Commission and the Antitrust Division of the Justice Department that are in charge of breaking up monopolies. Monopolies had also been responsible for keeping prices up. Those two are being shut down. And he's put he fired Lena Khan, who is chair of the Federal Trade Commission, put into her place this fellow named Ferguson, who's a corporate stooge, who's saying now more and more mergers. Now we can sort of free the world, free corporations to merge like mad. And mergers mean bigger and bigger companies and more monopolization, which means higher prices. So, Heather, the bottom line here is that Trump is elected on a promise to reduce prices. He's doing just the opposite, and prices are actually going up in anticipation of what he's doing.
And when his tax cuts are extended, as we imagine they will be, right, which will also cost us $400 billion, that is going to be more corporate welfare going to these corporations, right?
Well, that's right, and that figure. Let's make very clear. The estimate of extending the Trump tax cut that mostly benefits wealthy people and big corporations is $4 to $5 trillion. And what does that mean? It means the federal budget just continues. The deficit continues to increase. The debt continues to increase. It gives more legitimacy, quote unquote, to Musk and Trump to cut the federal workforce and cut these programs that people, in fact, need, while they're giving taxes and tax cuts, rather, to big corporations and the wealthy. Everything is upside down. It's completely upside down from what it needs to be, what it should be. Inflation and the economy are suffering as a result.
And in terms of the tariffs, so our neighbors, our people who are our allies, Trump is completely screwing over in many ways, right? But then on the global stage, we have him cozying up and fist bumping and being best friends with all of these oligarchs.
Did you say
talk to us
bumping?
More about that?
What's
fist
a
bumping?
Bump?
You know,
fist
like
bumping.
bros
Fist
who are like we're best friends.
This is sort of a continuation of what we saw in the first Trump administration. I mean, that he makes friends with authoritarians. Putin is, he's giving Putin, it looks like he's giving Putin exactly what Putin wants in terms of Ukraine. And meanwhile, what is Trump doing to our best friends in the world, Canada and Mexico and Europe and the European Union and Japan? He's raising tariffs against them. I mean, what are we to make of this? The only way of understanding this is that it is not the old Western Bloc versus the Soviet Union, certainly not Russia. It is, in fact, oligarchs against the people of the world, global oligarchs against the rest of us? I mean, that's one way of explaining what is happening.
But that's such a shift in our geopolitical landscape. I mean, what's going on right now is terrifying at every single level.
And I wanted this Coffee Klatch to be positive.
I mean, I know you set out that intention, but I don't know what you were dreaming about.
Okay. So we've talked about Musk. We've talked about the economy, and both of those are interrelated, obviously, because the more Musk basically undermines what is going on in terms of health, safety, environmental protections, everything else that people need, using his own inside knowledge and inside ability to make more money for himself, the basically trust in the economy goes down, and as trust in the economy decreases, we can expect more economic problems in the future.
But so much of this chaos as content, as I read in the New York Times, a great description of this, just has people amped. So when we talk about this is illegal, I think people think, probably illegal isn't great, but I'm feeling like people are fighting the system. Business is unusual, and that feels good to me. So what do we do to fight back against this? I mean, and you said it's a coup. Why isn't the mainstream media using the word coup?
It's interesting, Heather. The New York Times editorial board, and it's not all that common for the New York Times editorial board itself to write an editorial. They wrote an editorial this week about how Musk and Trump are basically ignoring Congress, obviously by putting a freeze on federal spending, by doing things like saying TikTok, even though Congress said you're out of business, you can stay in business, by essentially ignoring everything Congress is saying. But not only that, but Trump and Musk are also ignoring the federal courts. We have three branches of government under the Constitution. We have the executive, and we have the Congress, and we have the federal courts, the judiciary. And what Musk and Trump are doing is saying, we are not paying any more attention to Congress, and we're not going to pay any attention to the federal courts, even though you have judges now trying to put stays on a lot of the things that Trump and Musk are doing, but the response from Trump and Musk, and even Vance, the one person who, he graduated from Yale Law School. What did he learn in law school? Vance says, no, we are not bound by the federal courts. Well, if they're not bound by the federal courts, what check is there on what they are doing? I mean, this is the way. So the New York Times says, well, this is very dangerous, but even the New York Times doesn't call it a coup.
Well, is it a coup, question mark? I mean, they like to put a question mark instead of saying things with a period.
Many people have in their heads that a coup has to be a military coup. No, right. A coup can also be an executive, a so-called president or prime minister who ignores the rest of a government where there are checks and balances. Netanyahu in Israel, what he did with the courts there, what Viktor Orban in Hungary has done in Hungary with the other checks on executive power. These are coups in terms of overwhelming a government that is supposed to otherwise represent the people.
But are they waiting to use the term coup until it gets worse?
I don't know, but the advantage of using a term like coup to describe what's going on right now is it gets people sensitized to how dangerous what is going on is for our democracy, that it's basically unraveling our democracy. And it also enables people to wake up. I mean, so many people are overwhelmed, Heather, by the flooding of the zone. Every day there are more initiatives that so many people say, that's outrageous. You can't do that. Can they do that? That's outrageous. But if you see it all as part of a coup, if you can put the label, the coup, on it, then it's less flooding. I mean, then you actually have something to attach to. You can say, well, this is all about creating a dictatorship in the United States that is not being controlled, that is basically Trump and Musk and Vance, a regime, not administration, and not a country and a government of and by and for the people, but a government of and by and for Trump and Musk and Vance and the billionaires behind them.
Yep, and the billionaires. I know it. Okay, so...
So have I ended up on a positive note yet? We have to find a positive note in this.
Well, so can we talk about Mayor Adams?
Oh, good, positive.
Well, there is.
You're now really talking.
There is
great.
some positive about it, though. I mean, we have Danielle Sassoon, who was the federal prosecutor, who said, "I refuse. I am out. I am leaving, and I am done. I am not taking this on." So talk to us about her.
I think this is very important because you've got Trump trying to use the Justice Department to get back at his enemies, his so-called enemies. It's all about vengeance, vindictiveness, and he puts Pam Bondi, his lawyer. I mean, she used to be effectively his lawyer. He made contributions to her when she was Florida Attorney General. And he put Emil Bove, what's his name? Bove? I think that's his name.
Yes.
On as the number two in the Justice Department, who is also just a Trump loyalist, a Trump flacky. And Bove says to the Justice Department Corruption Integrity Unit and the attorney, U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, who's a U.S. attorney who has a lot of responsibility. This is Sassoon, and he says we have to drop charges against Eric Adams, drop the corruption charges, and it's all politics because we need Adams' cooperation and we need his help, and we want
to
drop the charges.
By the way, immigration, right? And the immigration czar, Tom Homan, came out talking with Adams the other day.
So, but here is the silver lining that we have been seeking, because you have the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. She's been there, 3 or 4 weeks. She's a Trump appointee.
I think.
She's a Trump appointee. She used to be a clerk to Scalia, Justice Scalia. She's basically a very, very conservative, right-wing,
member of the Federalist Society. I know
Republican. And she says, no, I am not going to sacrifice this. I'm not going to sacrifice my office and my integrity. I'm not going to allow the Justice Department to do what you, Trump officials, what you want me to do. And she resigns, Heather.
Yeah. I know. Not on my watch and not under my name. I know. It's very brave.
And then almost right away, there are five other attorneys, senior Justice Department attorneys in the corruption unit who say, and public integrity, no, we are not going to go along with this either. We are resigning. I mean, this is important because it sends such a powerful signal to the public about where integrity actually lies, that there is still something called integrity, that
I know
the Justice Department cannot be turned into a cesspool of vengeance, which is what Trump wants it to be turned into. I think, actually, I mean, this is, I really salute, Sassoon and the other lawyers in the Justice Department. I mean, they are really profiles in courage.
Which reminds me of your Substack you put out the other day, one of many. I like to tease you about that, where you put a number of people. There was Phyllis Fong, who was the Inspector General of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and she refused to leave. She said, I'm not leaving. I haven't done anything illegal. So many of these people are saying, this is not illegal. I am being fired, and it's wrongful termination. And there are a lot of, I guess it's a good time to be a lawyer. I mean, it seems like every minute I look up, there's a lawsuit and someone suing. But there are people who are saying this is not okay, and it is very brave of them. And here we have layoffs like it's going out of style, thanks to Doge and Trump. Musk, but also federal workers resigning. I mean, I think about the fabric of our federal workforce and all they do, and it's horrible to watch it dissipate.
Well, it is horrible, and I think that there are, there are many people out in the country, in America, who say, I don't trust the federal workforce. They don't work for me. They're part of the so-called deep state. But I think this is going to change when people see that they are not getting the public services they need, that their own family's health and safety and the environment we all live in is being sacrificed because there aren't federal workers there. When they see that a lot of people in their own communities, 80% of the federal workforce is outside Washington. It's in small towns. It's in states. It's in Wyoming. It's in, in Arkansas. It's in Alaska.
Right.
I mean, a lot of the people in their communities are going to be losing their jobs as well.
Right.
This has an economic consequence. I think that people are going to think twice or three times or five times about this crazy slashing and burning and with no attempt to understand what it is that Musk and Trump are actually doing and what they're sacrificing.
So we humans relate to things at the personal level, right? It's hard for us to process what's happening in democracy out there and this opaque federal government, and it's all nebulous and I don't know where my dollars go. But I think in our own communities, as we see, you mentioned Wyoming, 6,000 federal workers are in Wyoming, 11,000 are in Alaska, which is not that populous of a state.
These are very tiny states. I mean, they're more cows in Wyoming and more elk in Alaska than there are a lot of sentient human beings. So
is that true?
Yes, yes, it is. Of course, it is. And so it really does make a big difference, not only in these states but all around the country, everywhere. And this direct assault on the federal workforce is, again, not just the federal workforce. It's on services and protections that we have come to take for granted.
And national parks. I was reading about that. And also when we think about the General Services Administration and how many people are frozen there and losing their jobs there, I mean, that's what makes government run. It is in charge of procurement, and it is in charge of real estate, and it is in charge of, we have a travel policy for the federal government and how people can travel. The GSA defines that. I mean, these are fundamental needs of a large organization, bureaucracy or otherwise.
But that's the irony. irony, because you have here Musk coming in and saying he's going to make it more efficient. When what has Trump done and Musk? They've fired most of the inspectors general of the United States. Phyllis Fong at the Agriculture Department was one of the heroes because she was the inspector general of the Department of Agriculture. She's fired. She has some investigations going on of Musk. This is why everything relates to everything else. The fundamental choice here is: do you have a government of laws, or do you have a government that is essentially a dictatorship with this clown called Elon Musk attached to it? That's the choice before us. And what gives me hope is you've got people of great integrity.
That's it.
Who are saying no to this regime. And right. I want to salute them. Heather.
I agree. And so every example of integrity, including in the face of significant fights, right? I think we have to be focusing on that. There have been some local wins around special elections that are promising for democracy, so I hang on to those. But I remember you were on Jon Stewart and The Daily Show.
Now here we go again.
Here we go.
How do you find these things? I don't know.
I have my ways.
Okay.
So you spoke to Jon Stewart years ago, and I appreciated what you said, and I'd like to watch it again if you'll let us.
Okay.
So I'm going to say something that I should not say publicly, so keep it to yourselves, all of you. Democrats, some of them, drink from the same corporate trough as Republicans. Some of them, a few of them, 3 of them. And as a result, some Democrats don't quite have the courage to take on power. I mean, to take on the people who are abusing their power in this country. And some of them are heads of corporations, or used to be. Right. And some of them are named Tom DeLay. And some of them are, there is a lot of corruption in high places. And there's a lot of abuse of power.
And if they were to take on maybe that sort of activist cleaning out the corruption thing, they'd get as many votes
yes,
as Ralph
absolutely.
Nader.
Clean the place. No. I think people in this country really, John.
They don't know what to do when I take other points of view. They're stunned.
But let me just say, I think people in this country, they really do, not the word liberal. People don't like the word liberal. But I think people do want a president, and they want Congress who have integrity, who say what they believe, who are not in the pockets of any special interest, not in the pockets of corporations, and will stick up for the little guy.
All right, I get it. That's a cheap visual gag.
A cheap visual gag. Jon Stewart.
Yeah, it was, and I loved every second of it. Oh, but you've been saying this for so long, and it's
it's shocking.
We're grateful to you.
That I was talking about integrity and not being in the pockets of big corporations whenever it was that I had dark hair. I
think it was
and Jon Stewart had dark hair.
I think it was 2005.
Well, in any event. Heather, we just have to keep fighting. You are a fighter as well.
Yeah, but you're very inspiring. So I'm grateful to be here with you and everyone who's watching with us, drinking coffee.
And Michael Lahanas Calderon, who is
couldn't do it without Michael.
Could not do it without Michael. And it's a great team. I want to thank you, Heather, and Michael, but I also want to thank all of you at home. Nobody predicted how bad it would get. We have survived. I suppose you could call it surviving a week 4. And I know how difficult it is for many of you. Some of you are federal workers. Some of you are in families with federal workers. Some of you care about the health and safety and the environment and the Department of Education and what the Department of Education does. Many of you are outraged appropriately by Elon Musk and his conflicts of interest, and the richest person in the world who is now making incursions into private data sources in the federal government. I get it. But I also want to emphasize to all of you that there are people in the federal government, there are people in America, there are most of us, in fact, who have integrity, who care about this country very deeply, and who are going to continue to fight the good fight. Thank you all. We'll see you next Saturday.